The void of space trembled as the Empire's grand fleet emerged from hyperspace, a colossal armada of warships stretching across the darkness. Their hulls gleamed under the light of Earth's sun, their weapons primed and ready. This was not just another conquest. This was supposed to be a massacre. Admiral Korak stood tall on the bridge of the Doombringer, the Empire's flagship. He looked at the blue-green planet below with nothing but contempt. "Pathetic," he muttered. "They still rely on radio signals and primitive technology. This will be over before sunset." His officers chuckled, confident in their overwhelming superiority. The Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds before this. No species had ever stood against them and survived. Earth was no different, or so they believed. Their intelligence reports had described humanity as reckless, divided, and technologically inferior. They would fall like all the others. Korak turned to his weapons officer. "Begin the orbital bombardment. Let them understand what it means to defy the Empire." The order was given, and the first wave of destruction began. Gigantic cannons hummed to life, preparing to rain fire upon the planet's surface. But then, something unexpected happened. The moment the cannons fired, the energy blasts vanished. The ship's systems flickered, warning lights flashing across the control panels. The weapons officer's face twisted in confusion. "Sir, our firepower has been neutralized." Korak's brow furrowed. "Impossible. Explain." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared. Screens filled with error messages. Earth's defenses had activated. But instead of launching counterattacks, they had done something far worse. They had hijacked the Empire's technology. "Sir," another officer shouted, "our targeting systems are down. Our communications are being jammed. It's like..." He hesitated, as if unable to believe his own words. "They were expecting us." Korak's fists clenched. No species had ever resisted their first attack. Yet here, on this primitive world, the Empire's most advanced fleet was being crippled before the battle even began. Then came the next shock. The fleet's scanners detected dozens of objects rising from Earth's surface. At first, they assumed it was a desperate attempt at a counterattack. But as the objects got closer, the reality became clear. They weren't missiles. They were decoys. Korak's eyes widened. It was a trick. The real threat wasn't coming from the planet. It was already in orbit. Before he could react, hidden human warships decloaked from behind Earth's moon. They had been waiting. "Contact. Enemy ships appearing at..." The officer didn't finish his sentence. The first wave of human warships fired. Explosions ripped through the Empire's ranks. Gigantic battleships that had once crushed entire civilizations were now burning in Earth's orbit. The Empire's strongest fleet had walked into a trap. Admiral Korak finally understood. Humanity wasn't weak. They had been preparing for this. The fleet was in chaos. Imperial warships, built for overwhelming force, found themselves unable to lock onto targets. Their advanced targeting systems, once flawless, had been scrambled beyond repair. The human counterattack was swift, precise, and brutal. The Doombringer shook violently as a barrage of kinetic rounds tore through one of its escort ships. "Shields at 60%. An officer shouted, panic creeping into his voice. Admiral Korak bared his teeth. This was impossible. No species had ever disrupted the Empire's fleet like this. "Switch to manual targeting." Korak roared. "We outnumber them. Crush them." But it didn't matter. The humans didn't fight fair. Instead of meeting the Empire head-on, they darted through the battle like ghosts, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing before retaliation could land. Their ships were smaller, faster, designed for ambush and deception. Worse, their weapons weren't standard energy-based plasma or lasers. They used mass-driven projectiles, railguns, coil guns, weapons that tore through Imperial armor like paper. Korak watched in horror as another of his cruisers broke apart from the inside, its hull punctured by hypervelocity slugs. Human forces weren't just fighting back. They were hunting them. A transmission came through. hijacking the Empire's secure frequency. A human voice, calm and steady, echoed through the bridge. "You should have stayed away." Then the real nightmare began. You said the battlefield had turned into a slaughter. The mighty fleet of the Empire, the most feared armada in the galaxy, was being dismantled piece by piece. The humans were relentless, striking with surgical precision, hitting weak points that even the Empire's own engineers had overlooked. They knew exactly where to strike. Admiral Korek's rage boiled over. "Fire everything. Bring them down," he bellowed. But nothing changed. The enemy was always one step ahead. Every time the Empire's fleet tried to form a defensive line, human ships outmaneuvered them, appearing from blind spots and ripping them apart. Then came the worst moment. From deep space, a massive human warship revealed itself. It was unlike anything the Empire had encountered before, a fortress in motion. Its hull was covered in strange plating that seemed to absorb energy rather than reflect it. Before Korek could react, the ship fired. The weapon wasn't energy-based. It was pure destruction. A massive slug, moving at an unimaginable speed, struck the heart of the Imperial fleet. A battleship, one of the Empire's most powerful, didn't just explode. It shattered. Silence filled the Doombringer's bridge. The crew stared at the wreckage in stunned horror. This isn't possible," one of the officers whispered. Korek clenched his fists. It was more than possible. It was reality. The humans weren't just winning. They were demonstrating why no empire should have ever dared to challenge them. You said panic spread through the Imperial fleet. Their formation had collapsed, their warships were burning, and their once unshakable confidence had turned into fear. The human warships moved like predators, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing into the darkness of space before counterattacks could land. Admiral Korek refused to accept it. He had commanded countless battles, had crushed rebellions, and wiped out entire species, but never had he seen a force fight like this. The humans weren't just warriors. They were tacticians, hunters, and executioners all in one. "Sir, we have to retreat," one of his officers shouted. Retreat. The word burned in Korek's mind. The Empire had never retreated. To flee from an inferior species was unthinkable. Yet, as he watched another one of his capital ships explode into fragments, he knew the truth. This was no ordinary battle. This was extermination. The humans had planned for this moment. They had been waiting for the Empire to come. The intelligence reports were wrong. Earth was not weak. It was not divided. It was a trap. Korek's hands trembled with rage. His pride screamed at him to fight, but logic told him there was only one option left. "Send the distress signal," he ordered through gritted teeth. "Tell the High Command that we have made a mistake." But deep down, he already knew. Help would never arrive in time. You said the Imperial fleet was in full retreat. Battleships that had once terrorized entire civilizations were now fleeing like prey. Engines burned at maximum output as the surviving warships tried to escape Earth's orbit. But the humans weren't letting them go so easily. From the shadows of space, a second wave of human forces emerged. They had been waiting, watching the Empire's desperation grow. Now, they closed the trap. Admiral Korek gritted his teeth as warnings flooded his display. The humans had anticipated the retreat. They had left them only one escape corridor, straight into another ambush. One by one, the remaining Imperial warships were picked apart. The Doombringer took a direct hit, its hull screaming under the impact. Sparks flew across the bridge, and the smell of burning metal filled the air. Korek's vision blurred. How had it come to this? How had the Empire, in all its power, been reduced to ruins within hours? Then the human transmission returned. The same cold, calculating voice echoed through the ship's failing systems. "You came here expecting to conquer us. Now, you understand your mistake." On the main screen, Korek saw it, The final blow. The massive human warship, the one that had obliterated their strongest battleships, was preparing to fire again. And this time, it was aimed directly at the Doombringer. "You said." Admiral Korak's breath caught in his throat. The human warship loomed over them, its weapons humming with deadly intent. This was the end. His crew scrambled, shouting desperate solutions, but there was nothing left to do. They had lost. The human ship fired. A blinding projectile tore through space, moving faster than the eye could follow. The Doombringer's shields, once thought to be impenetrable, shattered like glass. The impact ripped through the warship's hull, tearing it apart from the inside. Fires erupted, oxygen vented into the void, and entire sections of the ship broke away. Korak fell to his knees as alarms blared. His hands trembled as he stared at the wreckage around him. The Empire had never lost a battle like this. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. With his last bit of strength, he activated the emergency escape beacon. He knew there was only one way this would end. If he survived, he would return to the Empire. He would tell them the truth. Earth was not a prize to be conquered. It was a graveyard for those who tried. "You said." The escape pod ejected from the shattered remains of the Doombringer, tumbling through the wreckage of what was once the Empire's greatest fleet. Admiral Korak barely registered the chaos outside. Twisted metal, burning debris, and the silent, floating corpses of his crew. His empire had never suffered a defeat like this. He activated the distress beacon, but he already knew the truth. No reinforcements were coming. The Empire would receive his message, but by the time they gathered another fleet, it would be too late. The humans had won. A transmission flickered onto his display. The same human voice, calm and unshaken, spoke once more. "Run home, Admiral. Tell them what happened here. Tell them what awaits them if they return." For the first time in his life, Korak felt something alien crawl into his chest. Fear. Humanity had been underestimated, thought to be weak. But they were something far worse. They were patient, cunning, and ruthless when provoked. And now, the Empire had given them a reason to fight. As Korak's pod drifted into the void, he looked back at Earth, its surface still untouched, still standing, defiant as ever. The war was over, but something told him this was only the beginning.